Music is one of those mysteries and little miracles in life, isn't it? It has the power to stimulate our brains or put us in a certain mood. If you close your eyes, it can take you back to a moment in time or a memory. I could literally close my eyes right now and think about Depeche Mode's People Are People, and I can almost smell the air or feel the breeze of Newport Beach at 32nd Street trying to park my little VW Bug somewhere near the sand with my friends. It's amazing. You're about to watch an incredible conversation between Dan Reynolds and I. I say conversation because this is more than an interview, it really is a very personal talk. And I'm so lucky to have had it. Dan shares some really incredible stuff about his music, relationships, some of the dark times he's been through and how he got out of it, as well as some other important issues. I really hope you enjoy it as much as I did. In any case, this is a great reminder for all of us that whoever you are, wherever you are, we were born for greatness, that we all have gifts to share in art. Quoting from one of my favorites, we are the music makers. We are the dreamers of dreams.
Hello, I am Dan Reynolds. I sing for Imagine Dragons, and you're watching Behind the Brand with Brian Elliott.
Hey everyone, I'm Brian Elliott. Welcome to another episode of Behind the Brand. Dan, welcome to the show.
It's good to be here.
Thank you for having us in your house.
Thanks for being here.
I usually ask my guests, how did you get this job?
I don't know that I got this job. It kind of feels like the job chose me. I grew up in a house where academia was really the forefront of everything, and art was seen as a hobby. So my mom kind of tirelessly put that into my mind, really just as a protective mother, having friends and family who had been in the art industry and had a hard time providing for a family. She knew I wanted to have a family.
What did she do?
So my mom, she actually has a pretty funny story. She was she is brilliant. And she was going to be a doctor with her brother, who is now, one of the leading heart surgeons of America, writes the book on heart surgery, genius guy. And the two of them were going to go into medicine together. But then she met my dad, and my dad said, convinced her basically to get married. Yeah. And that slowed her down and made her think, okay, I'm either going to have a bunch of kids or I'm going to go into medicine. And she chose to have a bunch of kids, and she had 9 kids, 8 boys, 1 girl. Yeah. So academia was pushed quite a bit. My brothers are plastic surgeon, anesthesiologist, dentist, and the rest are attorneys.
Mm-hmm. A family of big brains.
Yeah, Love it. A lot of doctorate degrees, and those things are a focus. So it was a focus to me, but I never liked it, and art was always my preference. And so,
what does your dad do?
My dad's an attorney as well.
Okay. And so they tried to steer you away from art. Yeah. But you showed signs of talent early on?
It was my life. It was all I did since I was 12 when I started to deal with mental health issues. Music was therapeutic for me in a way that nothing else was. I felt like I could communicate in a way that I wasn't able to an adult or to anyone really. Mm-hmm. So I say, that's why I say I feel like it kind of chose me, because I really feel like I didn't have a choice. I felt like music was just, if I was going to stay alive, I was going to do music. Yeah. And I genuinely feel like music saved my life in that way. So
that resonates with me. I mean, I feel that way about storytelling and filmmaking and the creative process. I totally get that. I mean, you're built like an NFL tight end. Did they try to get you into sports, but you went the other way, or? I
don't really like sports. I do jiu-jitsu, and that's about as sporty as I get. I enjoy athletics, but I never played anything. I wasn't even allowed to play football because my dad's best friend was a paraplegic from football. And so my mom was like, no, I don't think I would have either way, to be honest. But no, I have two, the reason that I have to stay fit is really, it's just a byproduct of, I have ankylosing spondylitis, and I have ulcerative colitis, but they're autoimmune diseases that basically attack my joints. And the only way to not live in pain is to either take really serious medication, which alters my voice, so I wouldn't be able to sing, or do really, really rigorous exercise. Isn't quite the word. It's almost like, what's the word I'm looking for? Like when you go to a doctor who is like treating your joints through
Rehabilitation.
Thank you. Rehabilitation. Yeah. It's more like like it's like you do all the workout that like I'm not going to a gym and like doing bench press and stuff. It's like joints and
physical therapy, PT kind of stuff.
Yeah, like strengthening all my joints and things like that. So I really have to be extremely like every day I probably spend 3 or 4 hours working on my body to make sure that I'm not living in extreme pain.
Yeah. Very smart. I want to unpack physical health and mental health, how those two also go together. I want to go back again in the chronology back to young Dan, what you're thinking about, and you say, this creative life kind of chose you, but also, I know a lot of people who watch the show, a lot of them even are high school, college students trying to figure out what they want to do, and I frame this upcoming question with that there's a lot of people trying to figure out, what am I good at? And so what advice do you have? What signals did you have that maybe you had a shot at this? It comes out in the lyrics in your music a lot. You talk about maybe being underestimated or underappreciated, and now you finally kind of getting some traction, etc. But what signals?
I mean, I think first and foremost, I would just say whatever makes you happy. So passionate is another word for happiness to a degree to me. I think music for me, there was nothing I would rather do with my day than sit down and create. And the thought of there is nothing, there's a blank canvas, and now I get to make this into something, and then I get to listen to it, and I have it as in an archive, and it's that was exciting for me. Just in the way that other art is. I love to draw. I love creating something from nothing, and then having it and capturing a moment or a feeling or a thought.
What's the order of operations? Do you start with an idea? Do you start with a melody?
For me, I always start with a soundscape. So really what I mean by that is like I'll sit down with no preconceived notion. I never have journaled lyrics previously and said, now I want to turn these lyrics into a song. Some people do that.
Eminem does that,
Right. Yeah, and that's the way that a lot of people like to create, but I don't. I really like to sit down with no preconceived notions, and then I'll have a keyboard or a guitar, some sort of melodic instrument, and then I'll start to create how I'm feeling. So, and I don't even know what that is. It might be, because feelings are really complex, right? There's not just like sad, happy. There's also like feeling indifferent. There's feelings of, there's a lot of complexity to emotion. So I don't quite know what I'm doing, but I'll play it, and then it will say what I'm feeling. And then to that, then I will start to write melody and lyric. And sometimes they come usually around in the same vein. Like I'll hear a melody and I'll hear words with it. And it really is a very quick process for me. It's never arduous. I've never had writer's block. I've never felt like I need to walk away from this. And I'm not saying that's a gift. It's just that's just my truth. That's how I create. I sit down. I always have something I feel or want to say, and I write almost every day. And I've done that since I was 12. And so I've written thousands of these songs at this point. And then I release maybe like 5% of them or something.
Yeah, it seems like for these prolific songwriters, people either I've watched the documentary or I've interviewed them personally, they get in this flow state and it just starts to flow, and they put it down on paper or they put it into their computer, and then, like you said, a percentage of it, maybe even gets shelved for a while, and sometimes they come back to it.
I think that's the beautiful thing about art. Like I have a lot of artist friends who will spend a year and write 10 songs, and that's their album. And they only wrote 10 songs, and they each one is meticulous, and they spend maybe a month and they rewrite it 10 times over. And I don't enjoy that. I really don't. And it's not even that I don't enjoy it, I don't create that way. I don't like to sit in a room with a bunch of people and pour over music in a very methodical way. Yeah. I really don't write with I don't like writing sessions. I don't like doing that stuff, just because for me it's a very personal thing. I just want to do what I love, and I love sitting in a room by myself and creating. And so that's what I'll do. And then typically when it becomes time for the record, then we'll get in a studio with the other band members. We'll go through these 300 plus songs that happen throughout that cycle in that way. We'll pick through them, and then we'll pick like 10 to 15, and then we'll bring them into a studio and kind of materialize them and bring them to life in a band setting.
I mean, your music seems like some other artists, but also uniquely different, extremely personal. That you're writing from personal experience and then you're pouring it out onto a page. How much of that do you think, would you put a label on that and say that's inspiration?
I don't really know what it is other than just truth. And for me, truth is not always been a part of my art. It's always been there, but I would bury it in metaphors because I was very fearful when I started art that I'd never wanted to write a song and have anybody know what I was actually talking about. Like when I was 12 years old, especially, I remember showing my music the first time to my dad. I think was the first person I showed a song to, and I was starting to deal with depression for the first time, and I didn't want my dad to say, "What's wrong with my son? Is my son going to hurt himself? Is he depressed? He needs to see a therapist." Like, I didn't want to have that conversation. But I didn't want to write about anything else other than being sad. So I would write these songs that were highly metaphorical. Right. That I'm sure my dad probably did know. Yeah. And that went into our career. So a lot of the first songs that I ever wrote, whether it was Radioactive or a lot of people listen to these songs, they think it's about a post-apocalyptic thing, or I've heard people say it was like about Spider-Man, like all kinds of crazy things. But that song was me really depressed, writing about depression. Yeah. And welcoming to myself to a new age of enlightenment and happiness, which is always what I've tried to do since I was young, which is to kind of reach somewhere that I can't, which is out of a clouded mind of depression.
Yeah.
So,
how early on, what's the level of self-awareness that you had? How early were you kind of keyed in that you were depressed? Because, speaking personally, I didn't really think depression was a thing until later on in my life when it really punched me right in the face. And I was like, oh, I think I'm depressed. Right. It's almost like that idea of my eyes are leaking. What's happening when you're crying for the first time? You're just not self-aware. How early were you?
I didn't have a name for it in my teenage years, but I knew that I was different than the kids around me. I wasn't like, I was just different. And I didn't quite know what it was. When I got into high school, I certainly started to know that I was, okay, this is depression. It's not sad. Anybody who's been depressed knows that it's not. There's a big difference between, hey, I'm sad, my girlfriend broke up with me. I'm heartbroken, I'm sad. And depression. Depression, that could maybe trigger someone into a depression, and that's another conversation. But for me, what depression was, is there was no real reason that I could point to. Right. But I lost interest in everything that I usually used to like. I became very antisocial. I didn't want to go out, and felt like numb. Like people would talk to me and it would just go in one ear and out the other. And I was giving the minimal effort to get out of every conversation.
You start to detach.
Yeah.
Yeah, and isolate.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's ironic, right? Because that's the absolute opposite of what you need at that given time, right? You need to connect. You need help. I'm glad that you're outspoken about mental health. I think, of course, in the last decade, I guess, there's been a lot more talk about it, a lot more acceptance, but I still think there's still such a stigma. We were talking off camera about my wife's brothers in the military, the military and, depression or any kind of circumstance of the heart or the mind, it's off limits, right? A lot of people look at it as a weakness.
Yeah, I think, like you touched on, I really believe that we do live in a world that it is highly stigmatized to be vulnerable, and more so to actually admit fault. Like we live in this social media world where everybody's sharing all these really picturesque moments and perfect things, and everybody looks beautiful, and there's filters to make yourself feel more beautiful, and there's all these things, and there's not enough of, hey, I'm hurting, and without people saying, oh, you looking for attention. Because it's social media, again, everything feels like it's just attention driven. Right. Where a lot of these things are real. Someone is hurting, someone needs something. But instead of maybe saying it to their friend, they're saying it online, and then they're becoming, people are making fun of them or thinking they're seeking attention or whatever. So it's really dangerous. And I'm self-aware of who I am and how I'm perceived because I've been in this industry for so long. And most people I meet say exactly kind of what you said, which is like, oh, here's this guy who's like, you look like a football player, you look, tall, you're handsome, privileged. Like I've been incredibly privileged. I've had a privileged life. I know what people think when they see me typically because I'm just like everyone else who knows what people, you see these things. So, yeah.
Although you did not come in leather pants or anything like the
right, but with that said, like I feel like a great amount of responsibility to show my brokenness because of that. Because since I was young, I've hated how I looked. I hated a lot of parts of me. I dealt with a lot of self-hatred. And so because of that, I feel a responsibility to share my truth because of this platform I've been given. I'm on a stage in front of tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, millions of people a year. So, when we're touring so for me, it's like, I don't know, I feel like if I'm gonna die at some point and I'm here for this allotted amount of time, so what I'm gonna do with this amount of time, I just wanna speak my truth.
Yeah.
I wanna share my truth with people, and my truth is that life is really hard. I've dealt with a lot of depression and self-hatred, but I believe that therapy has saved my life. I believe that music has saved my life. So I think it's the most important for someone who is perceived as given, been privileged, and I am privileged, but to really speak out. I don't know if that makes sense, but it's like I'm very aware of the perception of who I am.
Yeah, and I think you have a choice, when you have a platform, whether you have a small platform or you have a large platform like yours. And I think maybe even if I was going to extract a lesson, maybe to even the people who are watching thinking, I'm 26 years old and I don't have a platform. But really, it's not about the quantity, it's about the quality, right? If you could just reach one person with your words, if you could pick up the phone and call your friend and say, hey, we haven't talked for a while, are you okay? How's it going? Even just that one person, right? Just reach out to that one can make all the difference. Let's go a little bit deeper into some of the things you've learned from therapy or just through life experience, maybe just to impart some of that wisdom. What are some of the things that you learned to cope? Like, how did you get through that? It's one thing to say, yeah, I'm doing well now. Everything's, I'm managing it. But what are some of the things that you learned how to cope?
I think it's really individualized. Everybody kind of has a different, triggers and things that were traumatic for them, different things that either started their cycle into depression, or maybe it was just genetics, or there's a million things that people say. For me, I really dealt with serious. I don't like faith crisis, but that's the only word or phrase that I can think of right now to kind of explain it. I was raised in a really religious home. My entire life was built around structure and religion.
Yeah.
And it's so much so that I went on a Mormon mission for 2 years, and based my whole life on something that, for me, really fell apart, and then I was left with nothing.
Put a timestamp on that. About when did that happen?
I had a hard time believing in God. Like, that's why I say faith. I don't like faith crisis because it kind of reflects on just religious terminology. Like, for me, it was, as a teenager, I really wanted to know if there was a God. And it seemed like nobody else around me really cared that much. Like, everybody was like, right, maybe there is a God, cool, or I don't know, blah, blah, blah. Like, for me, it was an obsession. I was like, right, but like, I'm here. Yeah. Why am I here? What happens when I die? Death was very much on my mind. And it was something that I cared deeply about. And I really wanted, if there was greater understanding to be had, I wanted it. And so my teach, what I've been taught was that, well, you need to really search to find that. So I really searched hard.
And your whole family's in it to win it too?
Yeah, my whole family's very active Mormon still.
Yeah.
So I went on a Mormon mission. I read the Bible every single day for years, and read the Book of Mormon, which is the Bible to the Mormons, and really studied it and built my life on that since I was a young kid. Mm-hmm. And then I came home from my mission, and then everything started to kind of crumble.
And again, what year is this approximately?
21, 22. So the same time the band was, I started this band, and the band started to take off, and then all I was singing about, really, everything in Imagine Dragons' discography is primarily based on crisis of faith.
Yeah.
Everything.
Your journey.
Yeah. And so for me, because that's all I care about. That's the focus of my life. It still is a grand focus to me. But I'm much more spiritually searching now than religiously searching.
How did your family react?
Not good. My family's heartbroken about it. I think my mom probably prays for me every night, you know. But I see that in a different way. I was, you know, we were having this conversation like a decade ago, I would be saying this in an angry way. Like I had a lot of anger towards religion. Now I don't have that. I understand the heartbreak of, you know, family and a mother who wants an easy life for their kids and wants their kids to have faith. And I'm you know, I'm still searching. I'm not anti-religious, but I'm just on a journey to find truth wherever it may be, and it might be a lot of different places, and you gather a little bit here and there. But that's my life's quest, is to find that and impart it to my children, the truth, any truth that I find, and then to dissuade them from going down paths that I've gone down that have been not fruitful. And yeah.
What advice do you have then for others who might be on a journey similar to yours, trying to figure stuff out, or having a truth crisis or a faith crisis, however you want to label it? How do you deal with that, especially when you're insulated, you're in a community or a tribe, right?
Yeah. I'd say, first of all, I feel for you. I really, really think that a crisis of faith is extremely traumatic. I've lost friends to suicide because of faith crises. So just as traumatic as other things in life are, like, this is a very traumatic thing, and people who are raised with a deep sense of religion or faith and then they lose it, it's very easy then to lose your complete way in life and go the full opposite direction. That's what happened to me. I mean, I lost my faith and then I became a rock star, and then I said, well, I'm going to do everything, and just about killed myself in a million different ways. And so I don't want, you know, I know what it feels like to go through it. And I just say, I feel for you.
Does that mean like getting caught up in the rock star lifestyle, what we all imagine it is?
Yeah. I do a really good job of hiding, you know, my demons, you know. No pun intended. I guess we have a song about that, but
it's sort of out there, isn't it? Out there.
Yeah, but you know, I've dealt with. I'm always trepidatious to talk about this because I'm disenchanted with, like, I'm quite jaded towards the rock star mentality of like the allurement of drugs, sex, rock and roll. Like I've lost my friends to that. Like I've lost multiple friends to drugs. Yeah. So I really don't like to aggrandize it in any way, and I feel like a lot of times in this industry it's like aggrandized kind of thing.
Yeah, although I will.
But it's good to talk about it, I guess, too. So there's maybe a good middle ground that I haven't quite found.
Well, I guess what I was getting at is it does seem like several artists, at least, you know, who I can think of, in the mainstream, like you are kind of coming to their senses, right? Like, you know, Justin Bieber had his problems, right? He was a kid, grew up as a kid, became famous as a kid, almost threw his life away. And now, you know, he's a young man still. He's married, kind of getting his life together, and is getting more serious about stuff. And it seems like you've had a maturation process as well, where you were going through this process. You were young and dumb, maybe. You were experimenting, playing with fire. You got burned a little bit. You learned from that, and now you're this family man. Here we are in your house. I can see the music on the piano of the kids who were practicing doing their scales or whatever, and then down the hall I saw a little girl who was running around, probably just finished eating broccoli. Dan Reynolds very, how can I say, domesticated now versus maybe the image that people see when you're on the stage. I don't think I'm glamorizing that life. I think the lesson to be learned here, and it's, I think, a lesson that can be applied whatever industry you're in. I think you can get lost. You know, if your dad's an attorney, you could go down that path and just be so fixated and concerned about the law that you lose the sight, forest for the trees kind of thing. Much more important. And I think my audience too, which is really like a 30 to 40 something audience, they're active professionals, and they want to know kind of how you did it, how you battled those demons, and how you came out sort of on the other side.
Therapy, for sure. Therapy. I'm a big, I'm a proponent of therapy. I think that it's certainly saved my life. I have great therapists that I've worked with for over a decade, who have helped me through really, really difficult times. so yeah, I first of all, I think, two things have saved my life: music and therapy. So I believe in both, and I live both every single day. Yeah. That being said, I also think sometimes you just have to go on a path, and everybody goes on a different path, and you're never, like, I could have had a million therapists tell me, no, don't do this, or I could have met with you and you say, don't do drugs, Dan, or whatever you're going to tell me, and maybe I'm just going to do it no matter what.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean? Like, I could have been told all the perfect things by the perfect people in the perfect way. Like, I could give this advice to a million other people, and they're still just going to do it.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying it's like you can't save a life by saying, hey, go to therapy, and that person goes to therapy and that saved their life. But on the same note, some lessons can never be learned or taught. They can only be learned. I really believe that. And so I've gotten to where I am also just by failure. A lot of failure. I've gotten to where I am by horrible withdrawals. I've gotten to where I am through, suicidality. Like, I've gotten to where I am because I've gotten way over here. And now when I see that, then I know I want to be over here. So I'm not saying go get burned by the fire, but I'm saying some people are just going to get burned by the fire.
Yeah, and I think that's a fair statement, because it's ironic, isn't it? Like, the only way to get the kind of life experience that you and I have now up to this point is to just live it. And the only way to get wisdom, to get smarter from the experience, is the first step is you got to make the mistake. If we, there's this idea that, what's the saying? Failure is not an option. That's false. Failure has to be an option, right? Otherwise, you're lying, or you're hiding. You're living small. If you're out there living it, you're gonna make mistakes. And then hopefully, if you learn from it, then you get that experience, and that experience turns into wisdom. The next time you have the opportunity to do the same thing, you avoid it, and then you're a little bit wiser, a little smarter. Right. It's ironic, though. It's the only way to get to where you are is to go through it, right? The key is not to fail so far that you can't come back and fight another day.
Right. Yeah, and a lot of the most, people who are changing the world that I've gotten to meet some of these people who've really altered the world in quite a big way just because of the position I've been in. I think every single one of them came back from something.
Yeah. Who inspires you?
My mom. You know what I mean? Like, I think of my mom. There's a lot of women in my life that are very powerful. My wife is incredibly inspiring to me. She came up through a lot of trauma and difficult things and is an incredible mom. And so yeah, I mean, it's not all of them are celebrities. You know what I mean? It's like a lot of the most powerful people I know have changed the world. My mom has changed the world just by the kids she's had and what they've gone on to do, and the incredible mother she is. I wouldn't be here. Well, I obviously physically wouldn't be here without her. But so yeah, I mean.
Talk about your wife for a minute. You've been very vocal and talked about your relationship and how that was before. Can you kind of tell that story and again, framing it in the context of talking about your story for other people who might be in the struggle right now?
So we met over a decade ago when my band opened for her band in Las Vegas. She was the singer of a band called Nico Vega, really heavy rock band. Kind of the antithesis of everything I had been raised in. So I was with fresh, clean, vanilla Imagine Dragons church kid opening, lost and looking for truth, and then we opened for this heavy rock band that was like dark and magical and felt very just dark, and that was actually very alluring to me as we opened for them. But I knew there was more complexity there. It wasn't like dark to be dark because it's so cool. It was like there was just a lot of complexity. Maybe complexity is a better word than dark.
Or edge.
Yeah. Even edge, I'm like, complexity. Like there was a lot going on there. A lot of, experience, life experience. Yeah. And so I stayed after the show, and then we talked for a while, and it was just like that. It was like, light and dark, or complexity and non-complexity coming together, and it was. And she was looking for someone who was just looking for, truth, and like she, all the other guys she had met were sitting down with her and wanting to sleep with her, and I was sitting down, and my first question to her was like, what do you believe? You know what I mean? She was like, oh my gosh, like let's go sit in the corner, everybody else is drinking, we're gonna be sober over here and talk about what we believe. Wow. Okay. And that was where our whole relationship kind of launched from. And then we became best friends, and then we fell in love, and then I proposed, we got married, and I was like 23. This is before Imagine Dragons was a big whatever. Like, we could hardly sell out a
What is the actual starting point? When was the band become official?
So we started like 11, 12 years ago, but we broke in a mainstream way like 8 years ago, maybe. So I want to say there was at least 3 years of, wow, some members just gave up because there was I think we had 4 members that, within a 3-year period we lost because it just looked like we weren't going to get signed and this wasn't going to be a career, and it was a hobby and people moved on to different things.
Were you just gigging at the time, playing small venues?
And we were just trying to make ends meet. That was our full-time job. So it was putting food on the table, which was playing at the casinos here in Las Vegas. And no, I never thought that, of course I wished that I could do what I loved forever, but I was also a pessimist or a realist or whatever the word is, that I was like, right, are you going to win megabucks too? And are you going to be a QB in the NFL? What else are you going to do?
Did you have a backup plan?
I thought about trying to be a Navy SEAL or going into the FBI. I wanted to do something that pushed myself into an uncomfortable, scary place. I knew that for sure. I wasn't going to do a desk job, but I knew my mom was like, you have to get a doctorate degree, blah, blah, blah. So I thought, okay, I'm going to go to law school and then either go into the Army or go into something in that field.
So back to you're sitting talking about what you believe with your wife, and
so we fell in love.
Were you on the same page?
No, not at all. In fact, it was really, she was like, I think I've lived multiple lives. I was like, that's crazy. And she's like, yeah, you believe in Joseph Smith, you're crazy. So we were like, she was like, Scientology, and it was like everything that we were throwing out at each other was just like, maybe we don't really believe in any of that stuff, and we need to go find what we believe in. And there were, so it was, we had a really kind of fun, interesting.
Yeah, you're both open-minded. You came into the relationship.
Yeah, we were both very open-minded, and there was no ego. For me, I was never attracted to sitting down with someone who was like, I have the answers to life, let me tell you about it. Right. I'm interested in sitting down with people who are like, let me tell you about the things I don't know. I'll tell you about the things I do know too, but I mostly don't know.
Yeah.
And I love talking with people like that because I feel like, okay, that's a truth seeker. There's no ego in your existence. You're just looking for truth. So we really fell in love through that. I thought she was super hot and this amazing singer and stuff, but really her heart was on the same journey as I was.
You guys are in sync.
Yeah. But then it was bing, bang, bong. We got married, had a kid, totally broke, living in a studio apartment, didn't know how we'd make ends meet week to week. I dropped out of college. My mom was upset with me because I was pursuing music full time at that point.
Was your wife supportive?
Super supportive. She came from Eugene, Oregon, and was like, artists, be broke. You're an artist, cool. You know what I mean? It was totally, which is part of the reason I loved when I met her, because she was like, let's go be broke and live in the mountains and write books together. Yeah. And I was like, okay, amazing, awesome. I don't want to go
so hard if it's the opposite, right? Looking at your clock, Dan, when are you going to get a real job?
100%.
We need a house, got to put food on the table.
Yes.
That's such a gift.
It was, but it was, it was one of those things where it just was what I needed at that point in my life. So then we, fell in love, had a kid, all these things happened, but then the band blew up, and that really blew everything up in our life. Some for the better, some for the worse. It was then I was gone all the time. Then playing gigs all over the world, away from my home and my newborn baby for 3 months, and all the things that come along with fame and how horrible a lot of those things are. I also am not a person who I really, really don't. I'm an introvert. I don't on stage, I'm an extrovert. Yeah. When I'm on stage, I'm completely comfortable. I could do anything and be anyone and do anything, and it's my purest self. But
I get that.
I really don't like all the other parts that come along with fame. I don't like going out. I'm a super introverted person. I'm honestly, I'm like a hobbit. I've lost all my friends. I don't go anywhere. It's pretty sad, but yeah.
A hobbit, yeah. And maybe you're a family man now.
Yeah, that too. You know what? I'm honestly just like my dad. My dad has one best friend who they spend time together and go, camping and do their thing. And other than that, my dad always was like, why do I need anything else? I have my kids. And he would work, he still works. He's in his 70s, still working. Incredibly hardworking man who kind of gave his whole life for his kids. you know, for me, I'm in a career that's always 50% of it I love and 50% of it I really hate, and it's pretty toxic for me. Yeah. And so it's like finding, and honestly, that's probably everybody. Like I don't know if there's anybody who's like, I love my job every day and it's great for me and I love going to do this thing that I do every day. Unless, you know, I'm sure there are some people like that, but for me, there's parts of my career that I love, and there's some parts that I don't love, but I can't ever take back, which is like the fame and those like.
Were you being pressured then from managers or people who were helping you navigate your career to do the rock star stuff?
No, really the opposite. I mean, my labels and stuff like that for sure. Like I would serve my band 10 times better if I was dating like some celebrity. Like you do something like that and it makes your band bigger, and those are obvious things that I don't know. I've never had a label person call me and be like, Dan, divorce your wife and go date, you know, so-and-so. But
and that's like, and a lot of people don't know that that's actually happening today as we speak. There are couples together who are just together for publicity. Yeah. That's not a known thing.
And I'm not saying everybody who dates a celebrity is only doing it for that, but I will tell you it's smart marketing and it's smart. Yeah. But anyway, so no, I'm pretty much Imagine Dragons is where Imagine Dragons is solely because of our music. We've never been a face. We've never been a relationship, a dramatic thing in the news. Like it's just not. It's not a reality for me, and it's also not something I want to be part of. Thankfully, my brother is my manager. He's been my manager for over a decade. My older brother. Before we were anything, I begged him to be our manager. I was like, please. He was like, all right, I believe in it enough, I guess. And now, you know, he's stuck with us through all of that. And he's never pushed me to do any. In fact, when me and my wife went through a really difficult separation, and I was in a really dark place in my life, and I was experimenting with a million different things, and he was really sad about that. And that was a really hard time period. I think he almost quit because of that. Whereas maybe, it probably, you know, I'm sure another manager would be like, this is great, Dan's single now we can do this and this, we build this thing and do this, and but he was completely opposite. Yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit more, as difficult as I would assume it is? I've heard you talk about it in the past, and I think it might be valuable to this audience. I would assume the lifestyle, being away, distance, all these other factors, kind of a perfect storm of whatever caused this rift between you two, and there's a separation. What happened, but more importantly, how did you fix it?
Well, I dealt with depression for a long time at that point, leading up to this separation. And I don't know, I can't speak for other people who are depressed, but a lot of times, no matter how much I study it, no matter how much therapy I do, there will come times in my life where I just think my depression is a source of something. And sometimes it is. Sometimes it's like, this person who's in your life is bad for you, or this thing you're doing every day is bad for you and it's depressing you.
I mean, there's like triggers.
Triggers. Yeah. Or causes. For me, I'm really, the complexity and the nuance of my depression is, I'm sure there are some things like that, but it's so much more like it's been a part of my life for a long time. Before I met Asia, you know, and there's a lot of reasons why that I could probably think of, and my therapist could probably tell you better than me. But for whatever reason, we got to a point where first we had grown apart because I'm gone all the time. Then I was coming home, and you're like trying to re-fall in love, and then you're gone, and then and I'm stressing about all these things that are going on. Not spending so a lot of things like that led up to it. We grew apart in some ways, but also I was just so depressed that I was like, I need to leave. I need to run away. Like for me, I just felt like I wanted to run away from the entire world. I wanted to go move onto an island and restart.
Was it like feeling overwhelmed?
Yeah, kind of feeling like you worked so hard to get somewhere, and then you got there and you're like, oh, this is the last place I want to be. This is actually everything I don't want to be at. And then you're kind of stuck there because you've built a tower that, you know, there's a lot of people that are involved with it, and there's a lot of pressures that come with it, and there's livelihood based on it, and I just didn't want to do it. So I just became very self-destructive. I was like, you know, it was like one day I just called her and was, you know, in Europe, and was like, okay, I'm done. That was it. which, was the worst thing you could ever do to a person. But
How did she respond?
she was super sad.
Yeah.
Did
she say, no, don't do this? Or?
Of course. But I was just in a place where I was I don't know, I just needed to be self-destructive for whatever reason. I don't really have a good reason for it to this day, other than I just was really depressed and angry, really angry.
Yeah. When I was going through my little depressive episode, and it happens often, I'm just more aware of it now. It's been happening, off and on for the past, I don't know, probably 15 years when I've at least been aware of it. I learned something from an author. His name is David Burns, and David wrote this book called Feeling Good. He has a new book called Feeling Great, but basically he's one of the pioneers of cognitive behavioral therapy. And one of the things that I took away from my therapy and my research is that I was experiencing distortions. The distortions are really the main cause of me being my own worst enemy. In other words, I'm seeing it one way, but it's a distorted view of what it really is. Or if I'm looking in the mirror and I see, oh, you look so ugly today, or I hate that the way you look, that's a distortion. That's not the way my best friend would react to me, or my wife, or my kid. It's the way I'm seeing it, the situation. Yeah. So distortions can be extremely dangerous and destructive, right? And so I'm trying to feel. I feel kind of a little bit how you were feeling, at least through my lens. Incredibly hard, especially when you're in it, because it's hard to find a way out. So how did you dig your way out of that hole? I mean, because some people don't. They end their life tragically, or they completely detach from everyone and they start numbing or escaping with drugs and alcohol, or other things that you can escape?
I kind of hit rock bottom, and I haven't even talked about this really publicly, but without getting into too much detail, just because I don't feel like it will serve anybody, I really got to a place where, so we didn't talk for, I want to say 6, almost 7 months, and I was living in a really extreme way where I just didn't want to live. I didn't want to live anymore. And got in a situation where I was just, my body was giving up on me. And I reached out to Asia at that point, and that was the first time we talked. And then she kind of nursed me back to a healthy place and was with me after that happened. I called her from a hospital, and I was just not in a good place, somewhere overseas.
Yeah. I mean, again, you're a man who seems very deeply spiritual and thoughtful, who at one point had a foundation of faith in something, called a higher power, or God, whatever you call it. That moment that you were able to reach out, does it not seem like a little miracle to you? Because, again, some people don't have that, right? They don't get lucky, or they don't have the clarity to be able to reach out. They just think all is lost, and they toss in the towel. Yeah,
I mean, that's it's a difficult thing that I wrestle with all the time. I mean, for instance, I can tell you that I prayed back when I was a praying man. I prayed constantly to be able to do what I do now today, since I was a teenager. So, put a decade of prayers nightly that always included, God, please let me do what I love every day and travel the world and sing. Mm-hmm. And then I was given a 1 in a billion. Imagine Dragons is 1 in a billion. There are no more bands that do this. You don't break. You don't get to travel the world. Yeah. For what we've done, it's 1 in a billion. It's like winning megabucks. So an outsider, if I tell them that story, which I typically don't like to tell people that story, will say, well, that's a miracle, and God answered your prayer and gave you what you wanted. So why would you not believe in God after that? And it's one of those things, and I'm sure there's parables written on it, and I know there are biblical ones, but I'm sure other ones too, that are like, give a man a miracle and then he'll find an excuse for it, right, or something. And that's why God maybe doesn't give miracles, if there's a God, or any of those things. And again, I'm not a denier of God. I more than likely think there is something more than we die, after we die.
There's one thing for sure, and that's I don't know what I don't know.
Right.
You know, and I have heard a lot of miraculous stories. At the same time, you're right. A lot of bad things happen to good people who don't deserve it, and that brings into question sort of an intervention style God. If he'll grant little miracles like helping you find your keys or
Right. Why not save the kid dying of cancer?
yeah, so that doesn't actually always track. And yet maybe, God or this higher power, maybe it's, if I'm theorizing, philosophizing, maybe it lives within us, right? That we all have this capacity to be awesome. We weren't born to fail. Even the stats on us being here on the planet, right, is what, 1 trillion to 1, right? Just being born, the statistics of that, right? But that this underlying message, maybe to bring it back full circle of seeing ourselves or our true worth, our value, is that God is really in all of us, and we're capable of great things. It's just maybe up to us to find it. Some of us have obstacles. But yeah, it's a question mark. I don't have an answer for you.
No, I think that sounds like a pretty good thought, and it's pretty close to where I'm landing. I just I think I live with hope more than anything, and
Same.
My mom would always argue to me, well, hope is faith, so you have faith, so everything's gonna be okay because you're gonna go to heaven. And I'm like, oh, Mom, I don't know if I see it the same way as you like that, but I appreciate it, and it sounds like I'll be okay. You don't have to worry about me then, right? So
Yeah.
But yeah,
So you're back together.
yeah, so we're back together. I don't know if this is what you want me to say, but if I'm telling you my truth of what's been incredibly helpful for me, I also think that, like I'm being perfectly honest, I think that there are some therapeutic things that have not been legalized that might be really helpful for people. I found ayahuasca to be incredibly healing for me, pretty life-changing actually. And we live in a world right now where you could sit down and be given all kinds of medications and different things, and they're fine and they're not faux pas,
Yeah.
and they're seen as completely okay. And some of them save lives. I've been on depression medication before. I have friends who've been on it before. I'm not anti-medication, but I also think that we should be open to exploring everything that the world has given us to heal. And for me, and Asia too, and I only will speak for her because she's spoken about this openly, otherwise I wouldn't bring it up and breach her privacy, but both of us have experienced incredible healing from ayahuasca.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned. I think, here we are in 2021 talking about it kind of gently.
Yeah.
And, flash forward a decade from now, and psilocybin and,
Right.
all these other...
Which are becoming legalized. Like even my therapist is like, or my psychiatrist has been like, I'm going to be one of the first people to actually be able to do it legally here soon. And that we wouldn't have gotten back together if it weren't for ayahuasca. Like I went through this period where I had a real big health scare. And then we sat down together to sign divorce papers, and then stood up in the meeting, walked out, went to eat together, and within a week did ayahuasca together. Yeah. And then from there...
What caused you to stand up and walk out?
She sent me a text message on the way to the meeting that was very lengthy. That was, it's text message. I hate calling this a text message because it just sounds so trite because of technology and things, but she wrote magic to me. Like a letter, hundreds of years ago through a telegraph or whatever it is, that spoke to me on a really deep level. And she said all these truths that were like so profound, like as if she reached up into the heavens, figured out everything I needed to hear, figured out everything she needed to say, said it perfectly. Yeah. Little did I know she had just done ayahuasca for the first time. And she had all these realizations through it that gave her these ultimate truths that she then relayed to me. I'm not saying ayahuasca is going to save everybody's relationship. Yeah. But
no, she got dialed in the right frequency.
She was very dialed in a way that I was like, whoa. I read it and I was like, whoa, these are so these are really true, real things. Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
Have you just changed so much in these 7? What's you been doing these 7 months? Like,
Right.
have you been sitting with like yogis and like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And
well, because I would imagine prior to that, the text was like, I want the pool table. No, you get the car.
There was no text. It was like there was so much hurt and pain.
Yeah.
There was no talk.
Walled garden.
Yeah, I like my birthday. I remember reaching out and being like, I love you, I miss you, I'm thinking of you, and nothing. Father's Day, nothing. Yeah. Which I deserved. I'm not saying it in the way of like poor old me, but I was like across the world, so depressed, so self-destructive, and completely alone, deservedly so. That's what I asked for.
Yeah. Salt in your wounds, though.
Yeah, but salt in my wounds. As Father's Day passes, I'm by myself on the other side of the world, away from my kids, and like going through divorce. It was a horrible time.
You deserve it, you dirtbag. You're 5,000 miles away. You're not with your kids. What kind of father are you?
For sure.
Shame tactics.
For sure. And like I said, deservedly so. But the change was so profound in her in a way that it was not like, when you think of psychedelics, you typically think of the crazy person on the street who's lost their mind to drugs, which is not the case. That's not what ayahuasca is doing to people. That's what like methamphetamine and like, so for me, when she brought it up to me, I was already trepidatious of it because I had never delved into the world of psychedelics and it felt very scary to me. But like I said, I don't see it. I don't even like calling it psychedelics because again, it makes people think of drugs. Yeah. It was a medicine that I did once, and it really altered my mind in really powerful ways. I wouldn't even say altered my mind. It cleaned out.
Yeah, it seems like it gives you clarity.
You have repetitive trigger processes that you go through.
Removes the blocks.
Yes. A lot of my depression was this would happen, and then it sends me in this circle, and then I just go in this circle in my brain over and over. What ayahuasca did for me was it felt like somebody blew smoke through all of those circles. They went away. I still had the same brain, still accessed all my memories and normalcy, but I no longer had these triggers, these traumatic things because of, what I went through in those 4 hours of ayahuasca.
Yeah. Let's switch gears a little bit. I'm going to throw out some trigger words, maybe, and you can talk about it. Okay. What comes to mind? Toxic masculinity.
Oh man, I'm a firm believer in that. I was trying to touch on that before, which is, again, like being self-aware. I look at myself, I've always been overly self-critical, and it's one of my greatest strengths and one of my greatest flaws. With everything I do, I always am trying to see it from everyone else's view. Like, okay, when I did this, and one of my kids does this already, and I'm like, my heart aches for her because I already see her doing this. But it also has helped me to achieve a lot of things because I'm also trying to think of things from a million different perspectives.
It's like a perfectionism class.
Yeah. See, I think it's just really important, I think, for men to be vulnerable. It does not come easy for me. But I would think of myself as a pretty vulnerable person at this point. I'm emotional. I share my emotions with people. I'm often crying on stage, and I'm okay with that because I think that it's really incredibly healing. And I think men have been pitted we've been positioned in a place that we just need to get out of, which is a strong man is an unemotional man. And I think it's actually the opposite. I think a strong man is a very emotional man. I don't trust a non-emotional person. I'm not saying like, for instance, some of my brothers I've never even seen them cry. Yeah. And that's just who they are. Like, I genuinely don't think they're toxic masculinity. I'm not, like, they just aren't very emotional, crying people. So it's not always like tears that I'm talking about. I'm just saying having conversations about feelings. Yeah. That's really important.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Love Loud.
Yeah. Love Loud is a charity that I started, how many years has it been now? 4 years ago. It's an LGBTQ charity based on igniting conversation about what it means to love and accept your kid. And I get asked a question, the first question I always get asked is, well, are you gay? And my answer is no, I'm a heterosexual man. Okay, well, why is this important to you? This is important to me because, one, a lot of my dear friends growing up were LGBTQ and also Mormon, which anybody who grew up in that juxtaposition, it was extremely dangerous. I lost one of my friends to suicide in high school, shot himself in his car because he felt that God hated him. for who he was, and he couldn't change it. So he just said, okay, well, my life is, I can never love. So when you take away that opportunity to love for a kid, you're damning them to hell. You're damning to the most real version of hell that I know of, which is living life without the ability to love. So it affected a lot of people that are near and dear to me. I have family members who are in the LGBTQ community. So it's just something that I'm really passionate about, and I think that the hardest place for an LGBTQ child to be is a religious home, because, or you know what, I don't want to say religious home, a non-accepting home. There's some religious people that are fantastic and have been wonderful to their kids when they come out, but that being said, I would be lying to you with the statistics that we have, which is, why are a lot of these kids finding it hard to exist in this world? And it's because if you're in a community where you're told that your sense of the ability to love is a sin, then you are then going to put that kid into, their statistics are going to go through the roof with drug use, risky sex, suicide. It's like 5 times higher when non-accepted in your community, which is being told that your lifestyle is sinful.
If you could talk to the parents of children who are in that community, what would you say to them?
I think the first of all, listen is the first thing I would say, and that's what I've just spent the last years doing, is just listening to these kids. And what they have said to me is, acceptance is actually not enough. When you say the word accept to a child, because most parents that I'll talk to will say, well, I told my kid, you can tell it was hard for them to get here, and I understand that it was hard for them, but they'll say, well, I told my kid that I accepted them, so I've done my job now. Now their statistics are going to be fine. They're not going to kill themselves. That's not what it is. Yeah. What changes it is to normalize them, to celebrate them like you would celebrate your other kids, because acceptance feels like, right, God told me I needed to accept you, so I accept you, but there's always kind of a dagger behind the back. It's kind of like, but you're not living how you're supposed to live. And so, sinner, I accept you. And thief that's stealing in this place over here, God loves you, I love you. That's what it sounds like to these kids, which is, of course, it's not going to save their life.
What's the phrase? Hate the sin, love the sinner.
Right.
Yeah. But it's a backhanded.
It's a backhanded thing. It never feels like love to these kids, because it's not love. Yeah.
And I've heard the what is it? We love you no matter what.
Exactly, same thing.
Which is insidious.
All of those phrases are, I understand that it's like, it feels like we're doing something, but we're really not. Yeah. It is, I celebrate you. You're perfect the way you are. Yeah. It's all going to work out. Like to those, and again, like I understand that religion is precious. I'm not telling people like, hey, give up your religions. Right. Like, come on. There's a lot of people who it works great for them. They're happy. They believe in it. They have their faith. Awesome. I wish I had that faith. Yeah. Damn, I would love to have that faith. I've spent my lifetime trying to have that faith. I don't have a religious faith, but I respect it. And I would say to those people, it's just going to work out. It's going to work out. Yeah. Let go of that. Do what you're supposed to as a parent, which is, I celebrate you. Yeah. You're perfect. That's what you need to tell your kid. You're perfect, and you need to believe it. You need to believe it because they'll see right through your bullshit. They do. And then their statistics are 5 times more likely to take their life. If you know that, if every parent actually knows that statistic, when we really tell them, and we're like, this is the CDC. This is not like liberal, like we're trying to do something on the far left. Like it's not. This is just God's honest truth. If you want your kid to be less likely to take their life, you have to celebrate them. There's no other. You don't have another option when your child comes out to you.
Another word that comes to mind is ally. Yeah. And I think a lot of people, they get wrong, right? And being an ally is what you're talking about. It's being by their side. It's walking the talk. It's not just saying you can still live in this house. That's not being an ally. It's actually going up to bat for them or going to fight for them.
Yeah, I think every issue that we're facing right now takes all sides. If there's not all sides, we're all just yelling at each other. Yeah. So it takes people sitting down, listening, and just like any movement for equality, you need both sides to step up. You need white, boring, heterosexual man to also say, hey, I love you and I'm here too. And everybody needs to, it's like one piece of the puzzle. It's not more important than another piece. It's just part of the puzzle. Everybody needs to give their piece. I just, like I said, this is my family. These are my friends, and I love them. I want them to have the same opportunities that I've been given.
Do you think the church will ever change its stance on its rigidity?
You know, I have met with church leaders. I still think of myself as a cultural Mormonism. What people need to understand about Mormonism is it's like Judaism in that it's cultural. It's your people, it's your community, it's every dinner you have together. It's not Sunday we go to church and then it's every day is Mormonism. Every person that I grew up with were Mormons, all my friends were Mormons. Like, you don't walk away from Mormonism. You don't just throw in unless you just move to a different country or something and start, like, it's your culture. So I still think of myself as a Mormon in a lot of ways because it's my culture. Do I think that the doctrine is going to change? I think it has to, because we're already seeing a mass exodus from religion because the kids aren't okay with it. The next generation's just not okay with it. I meet kids all the time who are very faithful, super faithful. They're like, I know God's there. I pray to God. I have a great relationship with God. I love everything about my religion. My religion's great for me. I love the Bible, like Christian or whatever it may be. But I cannot get over the fact that my church isn't okay with this. And these kids are leaving. So whether you see religion as truth, and I'm not saying it's not. Maybe we're going to die and they'll be like, the South Park episode where they're like, Mormonism was the right answer. And I was like, oh, damn, maybe that's going to happen. I mean, we don't know. We don't know.
A lot of people don't know the South Park creators also.
We're Mormons. Yeah. And that's why,
joke, right?
Yeah. But that being said, so whether you see it as the God's honest truth or it's just a corporation and they're just trying to keep their members in, whatever it is, I can just tell you the numbers, and they know these numbers. This isn't surprising that I'm saying this. They probably don't want me to ever say it in a public way, but religions are losing. They're on the decline. Yeah. They are going to be extinct if it doesn't change with the times. Yeah. Now, should God change with the times or not? I'll leave that to other people to dispute. Does God change? Does God not change? Well, it wouldn't be the first change the Mormon church has had. There was a time when only white men could have the priesthood in the church. Now, people of color can have the priesthood. God changed his mind? I don't know. Or, whatever. I don't need to give the answer to that, but I will tell you, as someone who's studied theology, this isn't just Mormonism. A lot of churches go through changes. Right. They can change. Right. I hope they change because it's going to save kids' lives. Yeah.
Let's switch gears to your music, your new album. Again, deeply personal. What are some of your favorite songs from it?
It always takes an album being out for, I want to say a couple years for me to really say, okay, that was a good song. That wasn't that good. I look back at albums now and our previous albums, and I feel like now I can finally be like, Next to Me, I really loved that song off, our last album. But I didn't think that at first. And Birds and, different songs that have come up to me. But in short, I don't have a concrete answer for you on what's my, what I think is the good song on the record. I think time will tell.
Talk about Wrecked.
Wrecked is a really sad song on the record that ended up being a single. I don't really have a whole lot of, I'll give my 2 cents to the label and stuff, what I think should be singles, but I kind of leave that to other people to decide. But what the song is about the passing of my sister-in-law, who I was really close to. Her and my brother had 8 kids at the time, all under the age of 14 at the time. So to give you an idea, a lot of young kids. She was in her 30s, totally healthy, perfect, Mormon woman, never had a drink of alcohol, never smoked a cigarette, lived a perfect life as far as physically, and just cancer just came out of nowhere, took her life within a year. She was here and she wasn't here. And I happened to be playing a show in Houston, Texas, they brought her to this specialist hospital to get specialist treatment. Nobody thought she was going to pass. And after the show, I went and stayed the night in the hospital with her and my brother, and she passed that night. Oh. And that was the first time I've been in the room with someone who was here, and then not here. Like I said, I've lost a lot of friends throughout the years. I was never with them when they took their life or they passed away for whatever the different, overdose or whatever it was.
Yeah.
This was, I'm with you, I'm seeing life in you, and then I'm watching that life go, and then you're gone. And also this was family to me. This was like, we were very close. I like one of the most amazing people you'll ever meet. So it impacted me in a way that I still can't quite put into words. Like it has shaken me. It has made me like every day be like, how am I spending my time? Like even with like, for instance, I really don't like doing interviews. If I'm gonna be honest with you, I really don't like doing interviews. Sure. Typically when my brother sends me requests for interviews, I say no. This is something that's important to me. This is important to me because I think that this saves lives. I think that talking about these things are really important. Losing my sister-in-law has made me constantly question every single way that I'm spending my time. I only want to be spending my time doing things that I really care to do, that I want to be there. Like I have no time for kissing ass. I have no time for doing things because it will make someone else happy. Like I have kids that I owe enough to already.
Yeah, it makes it real.
So anyway, that song's about grief, dealing with grief and coming up short. I don't have a good answer for, I wish the song had some line that was like, but this will make it okay. Like there's really no line like that.
No, you're talking, it's giving me goosebumps because, again, I think in some ways we're cut from similar cloth. I lost my dad about a year and a half ago. It was really super difficult. There's a whole iceberg under the water that you can't see, but he went in, he wasn't in the best of health, but he went in for kind of corrective back surgery because he had back pain for a long time. And he was in San Francisco, and I flew out to see him, and he had done very well, and exceptionally well through the surgery, that we were all just kind of like, yes, he was 68, 69 years old, and I remember saying goodbye to him in the hospital and getting back on a plane to come back to Los Angeles. And then when I landed, my sisters called me and said, Dad got an infection and he's gone, just like that. And I had the same experience. Like suddenly, like nothing matters. Everything changes on a dime, and then you start thinking about your own mortality. Yeah. Am I taking good care of myself? Right. So I have 4 kids too, right, who count on me, but they're my everything. And and it changes you, right? You start to prioritize things a little bit differently. You start to, again, you think about how short life is, and what's really important, and the mark that you want to leave, and all that. So I appreciate that song. I appreciate you telling me the background behind that song. Another one is It's Okay to Not Be Okay. Yeah. To me, when I was listening to it, it's actually very like Beatles' Yellow Submarine to me. Yeah. Kind of talk about the process of that one.
Yeah, that is currently one of my favorite songs on the record, and like I said, time will tell. Maybe in 2 years I'll say I hate that song, but I wrote that in a bout of pretty serious depression, and I was often when I'm writing a song, I'm not ever thinking that I'm writing this for anyone else, because the majority of the songs I write nobody ever hears. Yeah. And I know that. I painfully know that. I've written thousands of songs. Thousands. I've written almost every day since I was 12. So you could do that math. I genuinely have written that many songs. So I know, so typically when I'm writing a song, or always when I'm writing a song, I'm never thinking someone else is going to hear this. So I'm writing it for myself. Yeah. I'm a selfish writer. And
I produce the show the same way. Yeah. I do it for me.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
And I hope that someone wants to know the same kind of answers.
Right. But if no one watched it, you'd still do it because you do it. Yeah, you need to explore this. Yeah. Yeah. So, when I was writing that song, I was really just saying to myself, Dan, it's okay to not be okay. Yeah. That's it. The song dives into people that I'm close to that are in my life. The 2 verses are about different people and their different situations they went through. One alludes to toxic masculinity. One alludes to someone wanting to be who they are and love who they want to love. And Yeah, and it certainly has a Beatlesque value to it, and I really attribute that to Rick Rubin, because in its beginning stages it really wasn't, and then we got into a studio and Rick was like, I really like this song, but it's pretty boring in the way that you put it together, like why don't you rethink it and go into a room, and he basically gave me a basket of instruments, and I went into a room and it was a basket full of like shakers and tambourines and a guitar, there was like acoustic guitar and just like a bunch of, like nothing digitized. And then I started it like that. I worked on it for like 6 hours that day, and I remember walking out of this little, I would like to go into this little room, and then I'd come out and show things to Rick and the band, and thinking maybe they would just laugh at it or something. But it was certainly like, I was actually more thinking Take a Walk on the Wild Side by Lou Reed when I was writing it, like that kind of like, it's like kind of just like mellow and a vibe. Yeah. But it feels happy, but the lyrical content is, makes you think.
Yeah, it's deeply meaningful.
Yeah. So I showed it to him, and everybody liked it, and so we just built on it from there.
Yeah, I was going to go back when you say when we were talking about grief and one of my key learnings, one of the things that I've been trying to focus on, and I've learned this again from friends who've given me great advice, who've also gone through grief. I've learned about it from other therapists and professionals, that sitting with my feelings is actually okay. My first reaction is to like avoid pain, and whenever it feels bad, feeling bad is bad at first. And so you try to either put it away, compartmentalize, or just numb it, forget about it, escape from it. But the advice that I've gotten to try and sit with my emotions has been so valuable. And the realization is that death, grief, trauma, I don't think that you ever get over it. I think it's something, again, this has been advice that you learn to dance with, that it's just in your life. I think about my dad every single day. I think about my kids, my wife every single day, and how just much gratitude I have that I still have time with them. But, those grief moments, or even some of the trauma that I had as a child, I'm a full-grown man. I'm still dancing with it, but I'm to a point now where I can again sit with it in a comfortable place and let it be, and then let it roll off and leave. It comes and it goes, and that feels okay, because going back to this idea of how do we get wisdom, how do we get experience, we got to feel the pain, right, to be able to know what to do next time. Which the opposite is hiding and cowardly, and you never accomplish anything, right? So if you want to live large or live a full active life, you should expect to get your heart broken or trampled on. I mean, that's just part of the package, right, of being a human. This is the inevitable. And it either happens early in life, midway through, or at the end, or all the above. I'm so glad you shared that. This show is called Behind the Brand. We talk a lot about brands, which extends out to humans who are personal brands. What is the Dan Reynolds brand?
I don't know. I've spent a lot of years just figuring that out through trial and error. It's still being figured out, I think, but I think my largest pursuit is truth. My life is spent walking through life, and when I find someone who emits truth, I'm attracted to it, and the second that truth is broken, I'm out. I have no time for anything other than truth. I'm just a truth seeker, and that's it. I'm here to speak my truth, to sing my truth, to make mistakes and tell the truth about the mistakes.
Do you have like a thermometer or like a barometer, a reader? How do you know if someone's telling you the truth?
Well, I don't. I've really become a probably overly skeptical person. It's one part of the reason I have so much trouble making friends, because I'm always I'm looking at everything with a bit of a like jaded view typically, and that's my own flaw, to be honest, because I'm sure a lot of the times people's intentions are probably good. But I've had so many people, I've had enough people who've had bad intentions or were dishonest that I just don't have time for that. Like, I'm not saying that I believe it's the right thing. Like, somebody lies to you or is living something, like, leave. That's your decision to make. I have a lot of people in my life relying on me, and I also think life is really short.
Yeah.
I don't know how many years I have left. I hope I have like 40, 50 years left. I could have 5. I could have 1. I have no idea, and I believe all of those things are possible because I've seen too much death in the last, in the last 4 years, I lost a dear friend to suicide. I lost my best friend from middle school to suicide. I lost my ex-girlfriend to cancer. I lost my business manager of 10 years to cancer, and I lost my sister-in-law to cancer. Those are 5 people that I genuinely was very close with in a short period of time. It makes me just, every day I'm like, all right, I don't want to be I don't want to be anywhere that's not seeking truth. I don't want to be involved with a conversation that's tearing people down. The world sucks. I'm not saying I'm perfect at these things either. I'm not like, I'm this perfectly truthful person who's like, I have all my flaws, but I'm just telling you, I'm looking every day like, what is the brand of Dan? I don't really know. I'm just like, my brand is just tell you my truth. That's it. I'm really just looking to tell my truth. I'm trying to check myself constantly, like, tell your truth. If it's not truth, stop doing it. Only tell truth. Like, the longer that I'm in this career, the more that's my focus. That's it.
Final words. Maybe look in this camera right here and talk to other aspiring artists, either people who want to create music or other forms of art. You could argue that being a terrific CPA or a plumber, that's art. Right. That's fine and admirable. What advice do you give them, especially when there's naysayers saying, hey, you've got 12 months to do this or else?
I really believe that, as cliche as it is, you absolutely should be doing what you love. I think you'll do it better than you'll do anything else. If you're in a career just to make ends meet, I completely understand that. That might be a choice you need to make. So I'm not saying your job is necessarily going to be something you love. But I think every day you should do something that you love as much as possible. And I think that you'll end up where you're meant to end up. If you really are pursuing your truth, exploring the world, there is going to be something you love, for sure. I've met a lot of people who say, well, I haven't found what I love yet. Keep exploring. You'll find what you love. And then do it. Do it every day if you can. Do it for your living if you can, of course. And that's the pursuit of life, I think. And that's not selfish. I think that's just loving yourself.
It's okay to be not okay. It's just fine to be out of your mind. Just breathe deep, just a day at a time. 'Cause it's okay to be out of your mind.